important. The opinions expressed in this video are the interviewee's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Stakeholders Limited, trading as Earth Capital. This interview, like our service, is not advice. The investments described are high risk and illiquid. Stakeholders Limited is an appointed representative of Palace Ventures Limited, which is authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, FRN 433291.
Thank you, James, for joining us on the Sustainable Conversations podcast. We're going to be speaking about Dalgety today, and so maybe to kick things off, you can briefly introduce yourself and give the audience a bit of a quick overview of Dalgety as well.
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks very much for having me on. I'm James Leavesley. I'm the Chief Executive of Dalgety. Dalgety are a UK medical cannabis company, and we're licensed by the MHRA, which is the regulator of medical products, and the UK Home Office to grow, manufacture and supply cannabis-based medicines throughout the UK.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, well, that's really interesting. So I think it would be great to understand a bit more about the industry. So if a new business were to enter the medical cannabis industry, what would be required of them? So can you give a bit of an insight into the government licenses and the process that's required?
Sure. Well, I think any new entrant into the industry is going to need a lot of resilience, a lot of patience, and actually a clear focus of what they're trying to achieve. It takes an awful long time to build a business, but that's the same for any business in any industry. I think the specifics of the medical cannabis industry is actually all of the guidance and the requirements are published on the government website on how to do it. And I can share a link with you if that's helpful for anybody looking to do what we're doing. But to summarize that, you want to cultivate medical cannabis, you provide education. The regulator in the UK runs that is the Medicines and Healthcare Product Regulatory Agency, or better known as the MHRA. But cannabis is also a controlled substance, and so you also need to get a controlled drug license from the DFLU, the Drugs and Firearms Licensing Unit, in order to hold and manufacture controlled substances. And cannabis is a Schedule 1 controlled drug, so it's the highest level of licensing that's required. Before you even start the application process for these licenses, the MHRA is the first step that you need to go through. And before you even start your application, they say that you need to have an existing and operational quality management system. So what does that mean? That means you need to build the facility, install all of the equipment, employ all of the staff before you can make an application to them to begin. And then when you go through all of that, it will still take probably 2.5 or 3 years in order to go through all the licensing requirements. We've received, from the moment of our first application, we've actually received 4 government audits before we were able to legally sell and supply in the UK.
Yeah, wow, it's a very long process then. It requires a lot of time, patience and investment. But useful to understand. So given that, how do you think medical cannabis compares to the illicit sources?
Well, if you go via illicit sources to get it, the format it comes in can be very, very similar, and the illicit markets are actually very good, and there's some skilled growers and manufacturers in the illicit market. The challenge from a patient perspective is what you're actually receiving via the illicit routes. Now, Curaleaf, one of our partners, actually did a study with Manchester Metropolitan University and Manchester Police, and they took 60 samples that were seized by the Manchester Police and tested them as if they're a UK medication. And now 90% of those samples actually received a fungal and mold level that was deemed unsafe for human consumption. Likewise, 27% of those samples actually had synthetic cannabinoids on there. So they were sprayed and laced with a synthetic cannabis, sometimes referred to as spice, which actually meant that those products were stronger than what the natural plant could possibly make. There were also, traces on some of them with heavy metals and various other dangerous things. So while the format of the products might be similar, whether you go down the medical route or the illicit route, Dalgety's, by comparison, conforms to something called the European Pharmacopoeia, which is the requirements for manufacturing any drug throughout Europe. We're also, if a patient were to receive Dalgety's product, it will come with a prescription, and it's a legal route to source that medication. Otherwise there's the challenges of the criminality of going through illicit channels that patients shouldn't need to face and don't need to face now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of health and safety for patients as well is such a big factor there, making sure that actually the quality in the product they get is of a certain standard and protects them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we've just on that, we've done over 750 quality control tests over our products before they're even released. So yeah, the safety and efficacy is a requirement from the medical regulator, but that's just not done via illicit sources.
Absolutely. So even though it's I'm sure from your perspective, a very long, arduous process to go through, for the patient, it's really essential. So
yeah, we've invested hundreds of thousands of pounds into the testing of our products. That's
fantastic. Okay, well that kind of leads us on to the next question. So what would you say sets Dalgety apart from others operating in the space?
Yeah, sure. So there are lots of people in this industry. There's the majority of cannabis is actually imported from products that are cultivated abroad, whether that be in North America or in Europe. There are other UK cultivators as well. However, the majority of those produce it to what we call a GACP standard, which stands for Good Agricultural Collection Practices. So by very definition, they produce an agricultural product, then send it to another pharmaceutical facility to be able to be manufactured into a pharmaceutical and medical grade product. The difference of Dalgety is Dalgety have the MHRA license ourselves. So when the product leaves Dalgety's facility, it has a certificate that is authorized by the medical regulator as it is supplied into the market for distribution. That is what currently sets Dalgety apart to others in the UK space.
Okay, fantastic. So the licenses really mean that you can take the product to a different stage than other competitors.
Exactly, and it's taken us 4 years to be able to get that license, and we've built a really strong foundation that we can now change our licenses and bring new product formats or such like based on that sort of foundation that we've already achieved.
So the hard work was worth it.
Yeah, finally.
Amazing. Okay, so how would you say patients how do patients currently access medical cannabis in the UK, and what would you say that are the biggest barriers that still exist for that?
Well, I'd say the biggest barriers are still probably the stigma that surrounds cannabis at the moment. Ever since the 70s and Richard Nixon, the war on drugs, people have learned that cannabis is actually a bad thing, when that's now in the last decade or even 5 years, we've known that to be untrue. However, there's a big societal stigma there. I also think that awareness is a key challenge for patients at the moment. So probably half of the adult population don't actually realize that cannabis can be prescribed medically. So again, that's another barrier to a patient. And then when a patient realizes that medical cannabis is available, they currently need to go through private health clinics in order to get that. The NHS don't prescribe medical cannabis, or they do, but very rarely prescribe medical cannabis. As therefore, the prescriptions need to be paid for privately, and that has an affordability barrier to some patients as well. In terms of when they sign up to a clinic and they call a clinic up, they'll need to speak to a specialist prescribing doctor who will look through their medical records and see what condition that they are trying to treat. They'll look at their history and what other pathways they've been through, treatment pathways, and consider whether medical cannabis is suitable. And it won't be suitable for everybody, but that's down to the specialist clinician to make that judgment.
Okay, interesting. So I think from a patient perspective, then it's not necessarily a clear or easy path to take at the moment.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so given that, how would you see the role of patient awareness and also awareness from clinicians in driving progress within the medical cannabis sector?
Yeah, I think this is absolutely vital for everybody in the industry to be driving this general awareness. And you know, I would say that there's a lot of industry partners doing a really good job at this. A lot of the clinics are doing big promotional campaigns. Dalgety are governed by the MHRA, and we have technically an unlicensed specialist medicine. It's a category, but it means that we can't do clinical trials against our product. Or it's incredibly difficult to do so. And therefore, we don't make any medical claims. And therefore, we can't actually advertise against specific medical claims. So it's actually really difficult for us to do any marketing or general awareness. We need to be really careful within the boundaries of the MHRA guidance to do that. However, we can talk about Dalgety as a business and drive awareness that way. And we've actually, you know, we've been featured in, you know, BBC News and The Telegraph, the Daily Mirror, the Express, and a whole range of you know, readers' demographics to sort of create awareness about Dalgety themselves. And then amongst clinicians, we've probably held between 6 and 7 different doctors' tours and had probably over 40 prescribing doctors throughout the facility. And that's to give them as much knowledge as possible of the processes that go into cultivating and manufacturing medical cannabis products. So then they feel empowered when they're speaking to patients about making the right prescribing decisions and things like that. We've got some exciting advancements as well, is trying to do more of these educational content pieces to gauge a wider audience. So yeah, we've got more exciting pieces to come, but it's incredibly important that everybody in this industry creates this more awareness.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I think it's really great to see Dalgety doing so much work on the educational side for clinicians and for patients. And if the audience hasn't seen actually some of the articles that have come out about Dalgety, then we can definitely share those, because there's been some really interesting articles as well on the market and what Dalgety are doing. That's great. And so you kind of touched on partnerships there. What role do you think partnerships play in scaling a business like Dalgety? And are there any collaborations you're particularly proud of at the moment?
Yes, we work with a variety of partners. Actually, moving on from the doctors' tours that we were mentioning earlier, we're rolling out police tours as well. So we've got, I think we've got 15 police officers coming around the facility next week to discuss the challenges that they face when trying to understand, you know, what is illicitly sourced cannabis and what is actually medical cannabis. And we're partnering with legal experts from the UK and also pharmacies to sort of show, you know, what the current rules and laws are surrounding the industry, and that will come from our legal experts and partners, but then also the pharmacists as well, that can show this is what a medical cannabis prescription will look like, this is what a dispensed prescription looks like, and where Dalgety we can show the level of control and process that goes behind that medical partnership. Equally, you know, other partnerships, we've recently announced that we're signed with Curaleaf. Now, Curaleaf are one of the largest cannabis companies in the world, and they actually have the largest cannabis clinic in the UK. And that's a really exciting advancement for Dalgety. We can access not only their clinic, but also they're a huge company, so their economies of scale as well. And that means that we can have a more efficient supply chain between us, the cultivator and the manufacturer, and the patient themselves. And that streamlined supply chain means that Dalgety get a greater unit cost back for our business, which means that we can reinvest and increase our production capacity and output. But likewise, we can actually pass on some of the cost savings to patient as well. And we're doing that. And with the new partnerships, yeah, our prices will be able to come down as well. And that's just tapping into you know, Curaleaf's size and also their streamlined approach. And they've got a real patient-centric approach around everything that they do, and it's a great partnership to be signed up with.
That's fantastic, and congratulations on that. That's a really exciting next step for Dalgety. And in terms of the police tours, I think that's another great educational push. It kind of deepens the gap, I guess, between the illicit market and the medical market, and awareness around that. So given those partnerships, and particularly with Curaleaf, what would you say success looks like for Dalgety in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, probably in a shorter timeline to 5 to 10 years, Dalgety are looking to, as I said, we built the foundation of our MHRA manufacturing license, but we want to expand on that now. And I certainly hope we do it in the next year or two rather than the 5 or 10 years. But we want to get a specials manufacturing license, which means that we can manufacture the finished patient packs ourselves. We currently outsource that function to our partners, Curaleaf, but we're looking to be able to bring that in-house and have more control there. We're also looking to bring online some extraction equipment, which is where you can get the plant biomass, or the flowers and other parts of the plant, and actually extract individual cannabinoids out of there. That means that you can go into different product formats as well. So we can do sublingual oils or vaporized cartridges. It can go into soft gel capsules as well, in case inhalation isn't a route that a patient wants to go through. Likewise, we're looking to increase our capacity. So currently we can do 4,000 prescription packs per month at the facility that I'm sitting in currently. But in the next year to 18 months, we're looking to increase that to about 22,000 prescription packs per month. However, we hope to do that much sooner than 5 to 10 years. And I think Dalgety sit on a 13-acre site, which is the highly secure site, and we're using only a small fraction of that. In the 5 to 10 year horizon, we'd hope to build a larger glass house and larger production capabilities and manufacturing capabilities, all within the same site. And I did some quick calculations earlier, and I think we'd be able to increase capacity to about 170,000 prescription packs per month out of just this one site. Now, that'll take an awful lot of investment and more partnerships to handle that. And the current market size isn't ready for that volume at the moment. But Dalgety's approach is we will grow with the market rather than building a huge 5-10 acre glass house now, hoping that the market catches up. We're looking to grow incrementally as the market does. It's currently growing about 100-120% per year, but we can see evidence that rate of growth is going to significantly increase in the future, and we want to be ready to be able to deploy into that when we can.
Amazing. How exciting. I think, it sounds as though Dalgety is kind of pretty well placed for that growth, and you've kind of got a great foundation to build off. So that's great. Thank you so much for joining us today, James. I really appreciate it. And I think useful for everyone to learn and understand a little bit more about the medical cannabis industry. As you said, education awareness is key. So really appreciate you joining and sharing a bit more about Dalgety.
No, thank you very much for having me on. And enjoyed it.
Recorded July 2025. Important. This video is directed at, and intended only to be used by, persons in the UK who can self-certify as high net worth or sophisticated investors. The information in this video should not be construed as investment or tax advice, nor a personal recommendation. You should not make or refrain from making any decisions based solely on the content of this video. If you're unsure an investment is right for you, please seek professional advice. The investment products discussed are not for everyone. They are generally higher risk, less liquid, and require a longer investment term. You may get back less than you invest. It is therefore important that you understand the risks before investing. Tax benefits depend on circumstances, and tax rules can change. Past performance is not a guide to the future. Where past performance is mentioned, annual performance data can be provided by Earth Capital on request. Stakeholders Limited, trading as Earth Capital, is an appointed representative of Palace Ventures Limited, which is authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, FRN 433291.